In this video, I'll share 3 cases so you can see how foods can affect people and how quickly their symptoms can disappear after taking out the foods that they were intolerant to. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny Barker, naturopath and health educator. Today, for example, I'll talk to you about Rachel, who had bloating, abdominal pain, reflux, low energy, diarrhea, and after removing gluten and dairy from her diet for 5 weeks, her symptoms were almost gone. This is just one of the 3 cases that I'll share in this video so you can see how real the effect is of eating the wrong food for your body and how much it can affect your health. You may very well be able to relate to some of these symptoms. So these are 3 cases I recently had come into the clinic. Now, when people come into the clinic to see me, I test all of my clients for food intolerances, no matter what health issue they have, because they cause so many problems. I use kinesiology testing to work out which foods they are intolerant to, and I find it gives people really good results. For those of you who don't know what kinesiology is, it's a form of muscle testing, which is commonly used by naturopaths, and some chiropractors use it as well. When I do the food testing, the muscle testing or kinesiology, is testing the response of the energy to the foods. And I know what you may be thinking, well, I can't come and see you in clinic because I live too far away, so how is this going to help me? But don't worry, I'll talk to you about an option that you may find useful at the end of the video. So I'm going to read these case studies to you. So case study 1 was Rachel. Rachel had diarrhea, reflux, bloating, stomach pain, pain before her bowel movements, and lots of gas. So I did the kinesiology testing and I asked her to remove coffee, dairy, gluten, and peanuts. She was also on some basic supplements. Now, I know it's a big ask to ask people to remove a number of foods at a time like this, but I will always work through with my clients and give them alternatives that they can eat, because this is going to give them the best results. So often I'll provide them handouts with alternatives on them, particularly for things like gluten and dairy. Now, in terms of having a number of food intolerances, I know what it's like if you don't get that extra support in terms of knowing what you can eat instead. I once had some tests done and there were so many reactions that I had. I went to the supermarket to see what foods I could eat, and I went home and just cried because I felt like there was nothing that I could eat, but I hadn't been given any support around what foods I could have instead, so I just felt like I couldn't eat anything. So I asked Rachel to remove the foods for 2 months, which is what I normally do with clients. However, I did see her after 5 weeks after she'd been off the foods. And she said that she feels so good, like she never wants to eat these foods again. She hasn't felt tired at all. She said she used to say every day, I just feel so tired all day. She no longer has any digestive issues, so the bloating, the reflux gas, the stomach pain, and the pain before bowel movements had all gone. She had even noticed her shoes weren't as tight. Her mood was also more stable, and she had only a little bit of morning stiffness, but in general her joint pain had improved. She did note on 2 instances that she had a sore tummy and diarrhea. One of them she'd had some barbecue sauce, and the other one she wasn't sure what it was, so maybe there was some gluten or dairy in there that she hadn't realised. So that was Rachel, case study number 1. Case study number 2 was Megan. Megan came in with a sore stomach. She was getting lots of bloating and nausea before bowel movements. She would get both constipation or diarrhea, and she would use her bowels every 2 to 3 days. So you should be using your bowels at least once a day if you've got a healthy bowel. I tested her in clinic using the kinesiology again, and I asked her to remove gluten and dairy. And she was again on some basic supplements. I saw her 5 weeks later after she'd been avoiding the foods, and she said the stomach pains that she got when she woke up were gone. She no longer had bloating, and she wasn't feeling ill after going to the toilet. Interestingly, she had been avoiding foods because she thought, She had been avoiding eggs because she thought that was a problem for her. But eggs wasn't actually a problem for her, and it was most likely that she was eating eggs with either gluten or dairy, and these were problems for her, so she could now eat eggs fine. Her stools were now normal, and there was only a couple of times that she'd had loose stools. She was still using her bowels every 2nd day, so still a little bit of work to do there. Case study 3 is Sally. Now, Sally had abdominal pain for about 1.5 years. Her pain came on suddenly, so she hadn't had any pain, and then overnight she got this pain, and she had that pain for 18 months. It was so bad she was taking painkillers every 4 hours. And she also suffered nausea with the pain. So I recommended that she try and cut out gluten. I didn't even test her for the rest of the foods because this is during another appointment. But because gluten is so problematic, I thought, well, if there's one food that can help her, then it's going to be gluten. So less than 3 weeks later, I contacted Sally via email to see how she was going. And she said she'd noticed a significant reduction in pain, so much so that she no longer needed the painkillers. So she wasn't taking any painkillers. She also didn't feel as tired as she used to, and overall she felt so much better. She said in her email, all in all, she had had a remarkable improvement, thanks to you. That makes me feel a little bit emotional because I know how much of a problem food can be, and I know how life-changing it can be. I had such poor health from the foods that I was eating and lived in misery for years, and it really affected a lot of things for me. Sally did notice that her pain came back when she ate gluten, when she was away somewhere. But pretty much she'd had no abdominal pain unless she'd eaten gluten. So I wanted to share these cases with you so you can see how much of an effect eating the wrong foods can have on your health. You'll also see the common theme coming through of how often gluten and dairy causes an issue for people. These two foods cause so many problems for so many of my clients. Note that in these cases, most of the time there was a combination of foods, which is really common, like gluten and dairy, but often other foods as well. So you may be thinking, well, without having someone to test me, how would I know which foods to avoid? And how would I cope trying to remove several foods at once? So just as an aside, there are many different types of food testing. So for testing for food intolerances, but each of them gives a different response. And I speak from personal experience here. I have done so many different types of food tests for myself, and they commonly give conflicting results. So there is no perfect way of doing food intolerance testing. But the best ways that I believe to test that gives the best results is by using kinesiology or an elimination diet. So an elimination diet is where you remove the foods that commonly cause issues for a certain period of time. I know how hard it is to remove one food group in your diet, like dairy, let alone a number of food groups, which can be really challenging. But you get the best results by eliminating the common food intolerances altogether. So I developed a program that would support people to do this. I developed a program called the 28-Day Revive Me program, where you remove the most common food intolerances from your diet for 28 days. These are the most common foods to cause health issues. With the program, you receive a list of foods to enjoy and foods to avoid, so you know exactly what's in and what's out for the 28 days. You will be removing foods like gluten, dairy and nuts, as well as some other common food intolerances. But don't worry, there are plenty of great healthy foods for you to enjoy. I'll provide you with heaps of tasty recipes that are easy to prepare so that you'll have something to eat for breakfast, lunch and dinner. There'll be no worries there. A lot of these recipes I still use in everyday cooking as they are so yummy and healthy too. You'll also receive a weekly menu which you can choose if you would like to follow this, or you can make up your own meals from the foods to enjoy list. You'll also be closely monitoring your symptoms along the way to see the changes in your body as a result of removing these foods. And then I will be teaching you how to carefully reintroduce the foods that you've avoided during the 28 days so that you can maintain the benefits that you have achieved, and so you can identify which foods are most likely causing your issues. A careful reintroduction is really, really important. So one of the keys to finding out your food intolerances is to remove the right combination of foods, which is why an elimination diet of many foods is so good. Whereas if you try removing just one food at a time, it can take a long time to identify if food is an issue, and if it is, what combinations of foods are causing the problems. The 28-Day Revive Me program starts on the 31st of August. The last day for ticket sales is the 28th of August, which is only 12 days away. Due to my schedule, this is quite likely going to be the last time that I'll be running the program for this year. So if you would like to find out if you have food intolerances, then come and join the program. There's also lots more to the program, including weekly Facebook Lives, Q&As, worksheets, as well as some great bonuses. If you'd like to find out more or you'd like to join, I will leave a link above or below this video depending on where you're watching it. I hope by me sharing these 3 cases, you can see how much food can affect some people. Bye for now.